These are smart sockets. Some are round, some are square, some go inline in your mains wiring. They all suck worse than a mid-2000s era plastic laptop running Windows Vista. Let's find out why by doing some DIY brain surgery on them. It only requires a sharp knife and a hacksaw, maybe a Dremel too. By the time we're done, they won't want to phone home or need their terrible apps anymore. So let's look at our test subjects. I'm assuming you know what they are. You might even have some yourself. Yeah, it's a smart socket. It's smart because it exists and you bought it, so the manufacturer gets some money. Selling tat to people who are too lazy to turn their sockets off by hand, that's smart. They're so easy to use too. You just plug one in the wall, plug a light into the outlet, and then install a badly made 2-star rated app on your phone. The app just requires you to give it full access to your phone, and then after creating an account on some foreign web server that probably doesn't follow your country's data protection laws, and bingo! Instead of walking all the way to the light to turn it on, you can reach for your phone, unlock it, find the app, hope it launches, tap a button, and yeah, see why this is called the Internet of Shit as well? Anyway, let's replace that complex mess of other people's services with our own mess of services. It's so much simpler. All you'll need is a complete Home Assistant setup, a few common household tools, glue, and a USB serial widget. We've all got those, right? If not, go shout at your Alexa and make it order some for you. Also, this is not a how-to. This is a what I did. If you do what I did, it might not work. Or you might lose a finger, or get electrocuted. Okay, so these things come in a variety of shapes. All the square ones look incredibly similar in that way cheap electronics does. Almost like there's some Far Eastern country churning these out by the bucketful, and you can customise the casing a bit. Maybe tweak the electrical safety compliance to get it 10p cheaper than your competitor without it actually setting on fire. Pretty much all of them work on the same basic idea. There's an ESP8266 microcontroller connected to a button, an LED and a relay. You press the button, the relay closes and turns on the socket. Or you do it online with an app that feels like a work experience kid on his first day, followed a how to make a mobile app tutorial, and then they shipped it. The app's not great, but it's not terrible either. It's better than the one for my car. Yeah, my car has an app. It crashes a lot, the app, not the car. But I fixed that with Home Assistant too. Do you want to see a video on how I made my car charge up better using Home Assistant? Tell me in the comments if you do. Anyway, this is a video about how I replaced one overly complex system with another, so let's carry on. All of these sockets seem to use the same app made by a company called Tuya. Except this one, which is a thing made by a company called Sonoff. This one's special. The wires go in each end and it uses some other app that I've forgotten the name of. Also, its lid pops open and it has programming pins on it, just there. We're not talking about this one, it's too easy. You won't hurt yourself or get electrocuted flashing this one. Well, you might do, but since it goes in line with your mains wiring, there's an assumed level of competence. In fact, all my videos have an assumed level of competence to them as well. So what am I even trying to do? Well, it's downright dumb that in order to switch on a table lamp, I need to send a message from my home network all the way to probably China. It's only by the sheer magic of the modern internet that this round trip happens instantaneously. Look, I really like the modern world, it's cool, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of tech in it that's almost awesome, it's nearly there. But it's just made by companies who either didn't go that extra distance, or don't seem to use their own products. There's no need for my smart devices to phone home so some server can harvest my personal details and turn my lights on. All we need to do is replace the firmware with something that can be controlled locally. Right, let's get inside these things. Now, this is kind of dangerous. You see these little plugs are plugged directly into a wall socket and they switch mains electricity. Here in the UK, our wall sockets will quite happily pass about 3 kilowatts of electric before something melts or shuts off. Usually the thing that melts is you, and you shut off. So the plugs are designed to very much keep idiots like me out. If you look at them, there's no screws, there's no obvious way in. It's just a plastic shell that's either heat or sonically welded shut. But we have sharp knives and brute force. You see this tiny little seam around the plug? That's where the knife goes. and then the trick is to force the blade in with maximum effort until it feels like something's happened. Be careful, because the thing that might happen is it might stab you or stab the desk. Do it all the way around the plug, try not to chew the plastic up too much. Now what you're listening for is, that's the sound of the seal giving up. If you hear that, you're winning. You can then start to lever the plug apart. Now kind of use your common sense. Look at what's going on. Make sure you're levering out the whole thing and not trying to pry the PCB off the bottom of the plug. They like to sometimes glue things in as well. Remember, they're not wanting you to get in this. It's dangerous if you open these things. But eventually, it'll pop open. Or it won't. These square ones are a complete pain. Or they're made better. It's hard to tell. These square ones popped open fairly easily. Easily as in I wasn't bleeding and still had all my fingers, and the plug still looked functional. This square one, though, didn't want to come apart. I think they properly welded the casings shut. I could stick a knife in the seam, I could twist it all I liked. All it did was chew the plastic to bits. But never mind, we can get medieval on it. It is only made out of plastic. I have a Dremel, and with a Dremel, anything can be opened. Just don't cut the PCB up or cut your fingers off. It works though, but it does chew the plastic up. And it has a nasty habit of spraying fine particles of plastic dust into the air. And your eyes, so engage your safety squints. Slightly safer way is to use a cheapo tiny hacksaw and just cut your way in. It takes longer, but it's a bit more precise and more neat. Once inside, we can inspect the goodies. Can you see why they want to keep this shut? Right there, just staring at you, is a pair of live terminals capable of passing a full socket's worth of current into your fingers. Imagine plugging this in the wall without it being glued back together, forgetting you'd opened it, and then trying to unplug it and the top of the plug coming off. Now the thing we're after is this tiny PCB. This is supposed to contain an ESP8266 microcontroller. On these round plugs I own, it does. You can see it just there. On these square plugs it doesn't. Or it does, but it might not, or it could do. There is literally no way to know without opening it. You might buy two from the same shop, stood on the shelf next to each other, and one might do and one might not. If you see an ESP chip, or one with this code on it that's on the screen right now, you can flash it with a firmware called Tasmota, which we'll get to in a minute. If you see these other chips, then you can't put Tasmota on, but there is another firmware that you can flash instead. But first you have to flash them, and this is difficult. It's both physically and technically difficult to do this. You see, this tiny board sort of sits inside the main PCB, and the pins we need to access are on the other side of the board. This is a bit like one of those logic puzzles that you have to work out how it was put together, because the board is soldered to the pins of the plug, and sometimes there's a plastic protection thing over the plug as well, and you need to take all that off and desolder the board. So you need a hot soldering iron. Also watch out, the pins on the plug heat up, so don't hold on to them or you'll burn yourself. Ask me how I know. UK plugs are a menace. Fortunately, the pads on the plug are quite robust, so some forceful prying while applying heat will get things desoldered. Just be careful where you're wavering your soldering iron, because you don't want to melt anything else that's nearby. You then need to attach wires to the 3.3 volts, ground, TX and RX pins, and attach that to a USB serial widget. You'll also need another wire to ground GPIO 0 or the reset pin, depending on the chip. And you'll need to find where GPIO 0 is as well. It's sometimes not labelled and it might just be a little gold pad somewhere. Some of these plugs are even worse though. They have these plastic safety covers that are plastic welded to the case and heat staked into the PCB from underneath, so you can't get the board out. You can cut a hole in the base of the plug though. This thermosetting fire retardant plastic stinks like fish though, and try not to melt capacitors or relay casings. But generally, once you understand what's inside these plugs, you can find a way of getting to the programming pins. Sealing the plug back up afterwards is something we'll come to in the future. To recap, so far on this fun journey, we've cracked open our socket, soldered wires to it and attached it to a USB serial widget. You know when I told you we're hacking things? That wasn't clickbait, we really are hacking stuff in every sense of the word. It's great fun this. This is some of the most fun I've had recently. The next step is flashing the firmware. If you've got an ESP based device, you can use Tasmota. And this is really cool, right? Normally you need to download programmers and install them and all this extra stuff that you've just added a dev kit to your system just to upload one small binary that you didn't even compile yourself. Well, they've thought of that, and the programmer's built into the website. Like, you literally don't install anything. You just plug your programmer in, you click the button that's on the website. I originally thought this was like a screenshot and I was looking for a link, but that's the button. You just click it and it just happens from your browser. There's no faffing at all. It just works. If you have the other type of chip that doesn't work with Tasmota, you need to go to this link that I've got on the screen now, and there's some instructions to read. And it'll show you how to install a different piece of firmware. It's not Tasmota, but it sort of works the same. It does need its own programming tool, but they've provided that for you. But these chips can take a bit of fussing to get working. You see, the non-ESP chips can be reprogrammed, but you need to press the reset button on them for 0.25 seconds. And it seems that literally means 0.25, not 0.1, not 0.2, or 0.5, literally a quarter of a second. So really, after a bit, you sort of get the hang of it, and it just means jab around at the reset pin with a grounded piece of wire until you sort of get it right and it notices. If it doesn't work, just keep trying until it eventually does. If it still doesn't work, check you've got the TX and RX lines correctly the right way around. Once the firmware has been flashed, the hard bit's done. These smart plugs are now actually smart. There's a mini web server running that is used to configure the device. There's no more crappy phone apps at all. I guess before we get there, we'd best make these things reasonably compliant with some sort of electrical safety rules. If you've not mangled the casing too badly, you can just superglue it shut. Just don't get superglue in the button and don't glue it to your finger. I've got it on my fingers. If you've mangled the case, or it had to be a bit more forcefully opened, then that 2-part 5-minute epoxy seems to work. Just again, don't get that in the button, and don't gum up the socket. And don't get it all over the electronics. They get warm. They probably need air for cooling, even though it's in a sealed plastic box. I might have one socket now where the button is glued together. If you do this, and the socket somehow notices and thinks you're just clicking the button repeatedly, you can go into the config and just disable the button entirely. The button is optional, it's not part of making this thing work at all. It's just a convenience function if you're near the device and you don't want to use your phone or whatever. Now we need to configure them. This can either be easy or it can take a bit of trial and error. You see, the devices have a button, an LED and a relay, as I've said multiple times. And they're connected to GPIO pins on the ESP. I don't know how though, because the module only has a few pins on it that are connected to the rest of the plug, but anyway. So there's a config screen. It might be your device is well known and someone else has figured it all out, and you can just pick the device from this list and off you go. If not, you literally have to go through each pin to see if it contains either the button, the LED, or the relay. Just sort of try it out, like set all of them to be the relay, and then try and turn it on and off and see which one of them it eventually is. You'll figure it out eventually, it's just a bit awkward. Or you can look for devices with similar pictures to your device because they might be the same, or have some parts in them that are the same, so you might at least figure out where one of the switches is. And to make this actually work with Home Assistant, you'll need to configure MQTT. Now, this isn't a tutorial on MQTT, but if you got this far, understanding that should be quite easy and you should just know what to do. When this part isn't working, I recommend getting MQTT Explorer and using that to check the messages going around your network to see what's been switched on and off. Now, the non-Tasmota devices, they need some config adding to Home Assistant. Then you can access them as entities. There isn't a sort of nice thing that pops up saying they've been discovered. If you install the Tasmota plugin, then it will automatically find all your Tasmota based devices. It's quite easy. So there we go. That's some actual hacking. I had lots of fun doing this. It was really good fun figuring out how to get inside these things without destroying them, because I actually wanted to use them. And I was also motivated by actually wanting to do all of these plugs, and a couple of them I didn't know if they'd work. It's a nice project though if you want to do some electronics, a bit of mild kind of programming, and then fart around with microcontrollers and generally turn some mass-produced consumer item into your own property that you properly own. Now that I've seen how easy it is to modify these budget smart devices, like if I ever buy anything from now on that uses Tuya, I'm going to open it to see what's inside it. I've got a few more things that I want to liberate now. There's some wall switches in my house that might be quite straightforward. There's a heating thermostat that I will probably need to completely swap the microcontroller on and figure out a serial protocol that it uses. And then I've got an air conditioning unit. And that's kind of where I'm going this year with some of my content. I want to create some projects and then work on them and kind of show you what's going on as I figure stuff out. So expect to see some more smart home and microcontroller type content in the future. If this is your sort of thing and you've watched a few videos, consider hitting subscribe and all that other YouTubey stuff, if only because it shows me other people enjoy watching this. I have a lot of fun doing these things and I want to bring you along, so if you're out there, show me you exist. And until next time, I'll see you later.